I reckon we should just kick off. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name is Ben, and I'm from Common Goal. So I don't know if you've all heard about Common Goal, but I'll explain a little bit about that in a second. I'm really happy to be joined today by, starting from my left, working down, Laurent, the Arsenal and Cameroon former player. Nice to see you. Marcus, who's from WhizzKids United. Misha, from MediaCom Worldwide. And last but not least, Yianny, who's from TackleAfrica. I guess before we start, I'd just like to show you a very short video that explains a little bit about Common Goal. As we reached in August, the 2-year anniversary. So let's see if this works.
Solidarity, respect, equality, passion. Let's act together and bring these values to every single place.
Like no other sport, football brings people together. The world that has burning issues we need to tackle needs football more than ever before.
We are together because we believe in the power of football to change life in different countries, different situations.
Sport doesn't care about who you are, where you're from. When you're on the pitch, you're all working together for the same goal. That's what's going to help you achieve your goals in the end.
As a footballer, it's really important to take on responsibility. You're in a privileged position to be able to influence people, so I think it's so important that people use that for good.
いろんな国の選手、大陸の選手が集まり、一つになってこういう活動をすることで、こういう活動をより広げて、当たり前のようにやっていけるように。
I want to make giving back part of football. Let football feel good about itself again. I want to change the game for good.
So that gives you a little, I suppose, flavour of Common Goal as the movement reached a 2-year anniversary. So we started in August in 2017 with a single player, which was Juan Mata from Manchester United in Spain, who pledged 1% of his salary to a collective fund that invests in football for good organisations around the world. When we reached 2 years, a couple of things happened. One, that as you noticed, half the participants in the videos were women, and I'm not too happy with the diversity of gender of the panel. So we were supposed to be joined by Alex Chidiac from Atletico Madrid and from Australia, but unfortunately she couldn't make it. Nothing too serious, but she's having to have some treatment. So she's had to pull out. So we were hoping to at least have one woman involved in this conversation. But as we reached 2 years, we reached the 100 mark of players, and it was at the exact moment that we reached 100 players and managers that for the first time we also reached gender parity in the movement. So there were 50 guys and 50 women, which was pretty extraordinary. And I don't know if anyone saw last night at the Best Awards, FIFA's individual prize ceremony, that Jurgen Klopp, the Liverpool manager who won Best Manager, actually used the platform to announce that he was joining Common Goal, which for us was another landmark moment, which we hope is going to spur more and more people to at least start thinking about the platform that they have as athletes. And what we're going to talk to. Well, what we're going to talk about today is a little bit this idea of what I've come to see over the last few years, that now is the moment in time, more than any other time, certainly in my working life, which is now stretches across quite a few years, that not just athletes, but also clubs and institutions in football should start thinking about standing up for what they believe in, beyond the realms of performance and beyond the realms of revenue. And in fact, by doing so, my hypothesis is that that will actually help ensure the future success and growth of the sport at a time in which consumers are obviously becoming more and more concerned about what the products that they're buying and the clubs, the players, and the institutions that they're engaging with. Consumers are now concerned about what they stand for. So I think now is the time. We've seen some recent examples of players who've stood up for issues outside of the sporting realm. So Megan Rapinoe, who won the Best Female Player last night at these Best Awards, was the first woman to join Common Goal, along with Alex Morgan, her US teammate. And she represents so many things beyond being a successful player that I think from a brand perspective make her an attractive proposition for sponsors, for clubs, for fans. And I think that's the area that we need to start looking on. That as we're in a conference about business, and I think sports business needs to start to understand that by aligning the business objectives and the performance objectives with values or with purpose, you can actually ensure that you increase the bottom line while you're actually doing something sort of sustainable and responsible for the planet. So without further ado, we'll just work down the line. Laurent probably needs no introduction. So one of the Arsenal Invincibles who won the Premier League a couple of times, the African Cup of Nations a couple of times with Cameroon, and also a gold medal. So if you just want to say hello and introduce yourselves to the audience.
Good evening to everyone, ladies and gentlemen, the members of Common Goal. It's a privilege, it's a pleasure to be here, and also all of you that are collaborating to this issue to be happen. And I want to say that this kind of initiative is, we have to get into the youngster. The youngster have to see that people like me, people like all those guys here, that are working every single day very hard in order, because we keep saying that the kids are the future. I believe that we all here, we all been one day a kids. So the fact that we all have now successful career, some in the journalists, some in directors, some in other different business, is because the education that they give us and the opportunity that we have in order to be here. So therefore, I would like to congratulate Common Goal, the big effort they're doing in order that every single kid in the world has to have the chance to get a proper education in order to achieve the goal. I'm not going to stand because there is 4 more people here. They have to talk, but this is the way that I love to collaborate and all of us to keep doing. I've been doing that for the last 5 years with Arsenal as Arsenal ambassador, traveling to Nigeria, to Kenya, to Singapore, to some, mainly Africa, but it's a fantastic job, and no more to say, and listen to those guys what they've been doing so far. And I think this is the thing that every kid in the world has to have something in order to believe, in order to grow, and have the tools in order to achieve their goal. Thank you very much to be here. I'll pass the guys to.
Thank you very much, Lauren. And I think to have an athlete perspective in these conversations is very, very valid. So we'll definitely come back to Lauren and ask him some more questions. So Marcus, do you want to just introduce yourself and let us know what you do?
Yeah, certainly. I'd actually like to start. I just want to say a little quote that I read this morning as I was leaving a friend's house, and it's by Maya Angelou, the American civil rights activist. And it said, people do not remember what you do or what you say, and I've forgotten, the line in my nerves, but they they remember you for what you say about them. So I would like to say thank you very much to World Football Summit for inviting us and for giving us this platform. Thank you for many of the beautiful people in the audience. You're all beautiful. Rodney, you over there, my friends from AE Ramosa, Herman, and it's great that you've joined, to learn more about Common Goal. Very quickly, I am the CEO and the creator of WhizzKids United. 20 years ago, people told me I was very stupid to leave, as a health professional, to leave my clinic in London to go and work in Africa and work in HIV sexual health. I was at a conference 2 months ago, and I bumped into a colleague of mine from Harvard University, a scientist there, and he said on his trip from America to Durban to the conference, he was thinking about the impact of WhizzKids United and the work we do. And he said that you have saved 1.4 million lives since starting your work in Africa. So it's important for you to know the impact that we're able to have as NGOs working in different parts of the world, and how important it is for you to hear that how Common Goal, now the setting up of Common Goal and 2 years in, has such a great influence and allows us to do so much more. So that's me. Lovely to meet you, and you're all looking so beautiful. So now and that's from Common Goal, so you'll always remember Common Goal.
Well, thanks, Marcus. So Misha, I think, brings a slightly different perspective to the group. So do you want to just let us know where you're from and what you do, please?
Yes. Okay. Well, we're not saving any lives, so I feel a bit strange going after Marcus. But I run the sport and entertainment business at MediaCom, which is two sort of major parts of our business. We work with a lot of many of the big advertisers, big brands, Coca-Cola's, Procter & Gamble, and so on, in helping them invest in sport, helping them leverage the power of sport as a way to connect with people, because we know in today's world, sort of traditional advertising is becoming less and less effective, and it's very it's difficult to get through. So, and sport is quite unique in that sense, and we help to identify the areas and the ways in which companies can can play in that space in such a way that it really resonates with the people that they're ultimately trying to connect with, which is not easy. But it's fascinating work, because what we're finding is, has been alluded to earlier, is increasingly we live in a world where everything is commoditized. You can go to any bank, you can buy any car. They're all they're all kind of insurance, whatever it is, toothpaste. You can buy 10, 15 different products. They're all the same, more or less. So companies are having to demonstrate something else. They have to demonstrate what they actually stand for, what their values are, not just for their consumers, also for people who work for them. Again, it comes back to how can sport be the vehicle to do that. And the other part is working with athletes, many of them high-profile athletes, to help them build a brand and build a personality that transcends their ability to play a particular sport. We live in a very unique times. I think there's never been a better time to be an athlete, because athletes have never had the opportunity and the platform to do as much as they could do today. So our job is to help them outside of whatever it is whatever sport that they play, whether it's football, rugby, cricket, hockey, help them tap into things that they're passionate about, their areas that they deeply care for, whatever those may be. How can we help them tell that story? How can we help them align with organizations that broaden that reach, and ultimately help them connect with people? Because given the amount of money there's in the game, there's never been a bigger disconnect between athletes and fans. But athletes have the opportunity today to bridge that gap by demonstrating that they care about other things outside of what they do day to day. So that's, in a nutshell, what we do.
Fantastic.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Oh, and then Yianny.
Thanks, Ben. So my name's Yianny. I'm from an organization called TackleAfrica. We deliver sexual health education all over sub-Saharan Africa, and we use football as a vehicle to do that. We have been around since 2002. We're very similar to WhizzKids and the work that Marcus does. The difference really is that TackleAfrica, we work particularly through partner organizations. And again, I can see some of our partners up here in the audience, so that makes me feel a lot better. We work with local partners across Africa, and we use a specific methodology, which is interactive football drills with sexual health messages. Now, those health messages could be around HIV, they could be around other important issues across Africa, such as female genital mutilation. They could be child marriage. They could be anything to do with our adolescents' sexual health and their rights. It's great to be here. It's great to be on a panel with esteemed colleagues, as I am here. We've benefited from support from Common Goal. It's hugely important. The football industry is not necessarily an industry that people always look up to when we're talking about good and social change. The organizations who are working towards social change do a fantastic job day in and day out. And I think, again, with Common Goal, with that support and with this element now, we have that opportunity to bring the industry of football over towards making a positive impact in the world.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, thank you very much. So I guess you can see from these different perspectives and different backgrounds where I'm going with this. So we're living in a context in which consumers are crying out for people and brands to have some form of credible social commitment at a time in which the sport business is going to have to rethink its traditional, certainly since the early 90s, reliance on ridiculous fees from the broadcast industry, and actually look towards its future sustainability, and this convergence of these two worlds of football there. So that's basically what Common Goal set out to do. The mechanism was, you've got this world of football for good organisations that are doing, as Yianny says, incredible work, very effective work day in, day out. And then you've got this industry of football. And it was just to try and bring those two worlds together. And it's a pretty simple mechanism to do so. Going back to Jurgen Klopp last night, isn't it an extraordinary thing that at this moment where you're receiving this prize as the best in the world for what you do, somebody, like, we didn't pay him to do it, by the way, like, or that it was sort of, okay, that would be a good time to do it. This sort of new generation of leader would have that intuitive understanding that this prize ceremony was the perfect moment to announce a commitment to pledge 1% of his salary to a collective fund, I think is illustrative of two things. One, this new generation of leadership in football, in which recognize that empathy and success can go hand in hand, which goes back a little bit to the consumer point, which I think consumers recognize that too. The other thing that it illustrates is that we have these old ways of doing things in the football industry, like individual award ceremonies, which, if you analyse them, doesn't actually make any sense at all in a collective sport. And slowly but surely, the disruption that we've seen in other industries, whether it's music or cinema or transportation or retail, that disruption led by technology is slowly but surely moving into this wonderful world of the football industry. So maybe just to get the conversation going, and also, sorry, final thing, I'd say Klopp's not an idiot either. So looking at the response on social media, if you just do a search or whatever platforms you're on for Klopp or for Common Goal, he's even getting praised by Man United fans. And you know, there's no other space in the football industry where that happens. So from a brand perspective, you know, his agent who facilitated that whole conversation was no doubt thinking that while you're doing something good, you can actually be achieving more pragmatic economic objectives as well. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So, Lauren, going back to you, what was the moment where you realised? First, I'd like to know about so when you're in your pomp, yeah. So you're winning all this stuff. You're at Arsenal in this team that didn't lose a single match. What was your life like in terms of being isolated from what was going on around you? And when were the moments, or maybe just a one moment, where you realised that beyond this world of elite football, there was this other world of football, football as a social tool, as an education tool? I wonder if you could just give us a picture of that, please.
First of all, when I was having success, winning the league, winning the African Cup of Nations, all of that, I was focused about only football. And when I finished training, I was reading books. I was reading books. I started to read books when I went to Levante. Every single year, I got to, instead of being in the room in the concentration, playing PlayStation or something else, I was reading books. So therefore, my attention away from football, it was to learn. Because I was a kid, I was a bit naughty, I have to say, in the south of Spain. So I was, doing things that I shouldn't be doing. But I didn't pay attention too much into study. As my father was saying to all of us, you have to study. I was, thinking different way. So I said to myself, okay, now I've got plenty of time after football, so what can I do? Instead of doing stupid things, so I was reading books every single year. So that kept me away from the bubble. The bubble is there. And what I have to say about that is there was 2 moments.
Were there many of you reading books in the dressing room?
I didn't see no one in that period of time, but I guess there is many. Yeah. But there is 2 issues that were 2 moments that I see that football make a huge impact. One was when I won the first league with Arsenal, and then the second one was when we won the African Cup of Nations. When you see people say, why you get out of football? Is it the money? Of course, it's the money. Is it the trophy? Of course, it's the trophy. But what I get from football, above all, it's the happiness that we brought to the people. When you go to Africa, lifting the African Cup of Nations, you see millions of Cameroonians in the street. That's everything. And that victory with the Olympic, it wasn't just for Cameroon, it's for the whole Africa, because the African people was happy about seeing an African team to win the Olympic gold medal. So that happiness says all. It's not the money, it's not the trophy, of course it's there, but for me, what I take from football is the happiness that a sport man and people that we are in the industry brought to the people. As well, when you go to Arsenal in Islington and you see the young lads crying, screaming our names, this is the moment I take off. The happiness that you brought into individual and to collective society.
Brilliant, thank you. Misha, I'm really interested that so you have these peaks in professional sport. As you mentioned before, athletes have these incredible platforms now, and thanks to social media and immediacy in terms of connecting with fans all around the world. From a brand perspective, what are the opportunities that currently exist for football players, and it can be clubs and institutions as well, but I suppose a particular focus on football players. What are the opportunities for a player, in your opinion, to have a credible social cause?
I mean, it's very simple. If we have we have so many agents that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. They're interested in, most of the time, they're interested in doing commercial deals, endorsement deals for their players. And the question I always ask is, I don't know anything about your player. I mean, I know that they play for a club X or they play for national team X, but outside of that, I'm not really sure. What are they? What are they all about? What do they represent? What's unique? What's special? So, and I think that's a huge missed opportunity. And when we speak to advertisers, when we speak to brands about getting brand ambassadors or so on board, they want to know what is that how does that individual have credibility in a certain area? Do they have a voice? Do they have influence? Because what they want, the individual is usually the channel. It's the channel through which companies communicate. So, nobody wants to listen to Coca-Cola or Procter & Gamble. And so that's not who people want to connect with. But if you are a player that people look up to and you have credible audience and people genuinely respect you, that's what people are. And it doesn't mean that you have, it's not just about the size of your audience. It's about what are you known for. And if that individual is known to be a champion of certain causes, if they're credible, if they're consistent, and those types of things that are very easy for players to do these days. It just has to be nurtured. You can't be everything to everyone. But if I was an agent, I'd be sitting down with a player, particularly because you have a very short window to do that. The careers typically isn't 15 years. You'd be lucky if it is, but you might have 10 years. At the top, you have the opportunity to create that, build an audience, to create that sort of connections, to become known for something. That's the time to do it. And so I think my message to anyone who works with talent is to be asking yourselves, what are our clients known for outside of what they're doing on the football pitch? And if they're not, let's have a think about what are the type of thing, what it is, common goal, or other interests they have. What is it that's going to make them more relatable to people than they currently are? Because otherwise, it's all the same. You're just all footballers, or you're all other types of athletes. You want to be able to say, oh, Juan Mata. You say Juan Mata, you know exactly what he represents, right? Because he made that very clear, and he's hung his hat on that. And I think players talent needs to think about that if they want to make themselves more appealing, more marketable, not just to brands, but actually as they go beyond their career to be more attractive to people. They have to be aligned to certain causes that others can relate to.
Yeah, well, incidentally, thanks for that. Juan Mata is actually as nice as he seems. So we've been waiting to find out this sort of dark underside to the man, but no, he is really uber nice bloke. I mean, just to follow up on that, I mean, the opportunity now as well, just in the context that we live in terms of what's happening in the world. Megan Rapinoe spoke last night when she won her award about Raheem Sterling. I mean, Raheem Sterling's a great example. So yes, he's an elite player with a big club like Manchester City. He plays for his national team. But it was one Instagram post about institutionalized racism in the British media. It was one post. Yeah. Why are you saying this about me, whereas in my white colleague you're portraying it in a different way? Which just rang a bell in terms of authenticity with the market in England, which subsequently led to him, in the time, becoming a top 10 trending topic in the world on social media, but then winning a prize, and now talking about linking it back to tangible brand benefits. I don't know how true it is, but I read in an English newspaper about $100 million deal with Nike.
Yeah, and they're sorry, and I can't really name another company, but we had a conversation with someone else, and he was one of the first names that came up. And you think, given all the talent that's out there, yes, he's a very good player, and he's been excellent in the last 2 years. But the reason why he's top of mind is because he transcends sport now. So he's a voice. He's got relevance in culture. He's taken on an issue that's authentic, that he can authentically relate to. And companies like that, because he represents something. He's not just a great footballer who, by the way, could get injured tomorrow. But even if he does, he's already elevated himself to a certain position where beyond anyone else, and anyone could have done that. Lots of other players could have done that, but he chose to do it.
Yeah, and that's the opportunity now is for players to actually feel empowered or emboldened or inspired enough to actually, if they don't care about it, doesn't matter. Every group's the same. I guess you're here because you all are. But in a random group of 20 people, there'll be 2 or 3 people that actually care about issues beyond the day-to-day. But yeah, there's just more and more examples. So Megan Rapinoe, there's Raheem, as we mentioned. Kopernik's obviously a massive one. But also Danny Rose, another English player, talking about mental health. Hector Bellerin, the Catalan guy at Arsenal, talking about the environment. And these people were so warmly embraced for discussing the thing. And we're not talking about, doing a speech at the World Economic Forum. They're just saying sort of things that like somebody would say to you having a cup of coffee or a beer. And yet, because of the platform they have as athletes, their message is so well amplified. But what you're seeing is that they're being embraced for doing so. So they're being embraced by the public and praised by the public for doing so, which then brings the sponsors coming. So the whole thing, the whole thing's sort of a mutually beneficial cycle. I guess a question for Marcus and Yianny. From your perspective, I mean, how can people from the sports industry, whether that's athletes, let's start with athletes, get involved with what you're doing, and from your perspective, if sometimes I think we have patronising conversations on the recipient end of the patronising when you're speaking to people from the traditional sports industry that see anybody related to social impact as being sort of these tree-hugging people that aren't really concentrated on efficiency, sustainability, impact, etc. So double question for both of you. One, how can people get involved? And two, what kind of return on investment can they expect?
Can I perhaps tackle the first question? So coming back to your common goal, which thinks you're all beautiful, yeah? The great thing about... Let me go back a bit. The problem that I've always had as an NGO and talking to people from around the world in terms of giving to Africa is people, often it's seen as just a pit that takes your money. Nobody knows where it goes, how it's spent. People don't feel safe in giving money to a lot of organizations in Africa. Common Goal has come along and recognized organizations that are under the Street Football World network. And it would be good to clarify where all of these networks, all these organizations come in. But under Street Football World, WhizzKids United and TackleAfrica are accredited. There's almost like, there's a sort of level that we have to reach. And that guarantees that those people that are giving and want to get involved are actually getting involved in something that's good. We've been screened, we've been tested. So for players and managers, etc., that want to give but know that their money, their investment is going to have a tangible difference. I think for me, this is what Common Goal, where Common Goal really stands out, that it is an umbrella for the football world in which people can make contributions and know that it's going. And it's the start of, hopefully, great relationships through players where they can become even more involved. Anyway, I talk too much, so Yianny, over to you.
Thanks, Marcus. To come to the question about bang for your buck, at TackleAfrica, I know it's true of WhizzKids, and I know it's true of our partners who are also here. We can stand in front of anybody and we can talk exactly about the impact that we have for the young people that we are working with. We can talk very, very confidently about the change that's being made, and we can stand up here like any corporate entity, corporate body could stand in front of you and reel off figures. We can also do that within our own domain. We really are focused on the impact. For us at TackleAfrica, it's sexual health and adolescents and young people in sub-Saharan Africa. We can talk about how many young people we're reaching and what the results are for those young people. We can talk about the coaches that we train. We can talk about the partners that we work with. Our core values, sustainability, efficiency, cost effectiveness, all of those things that sound quite corporate, we can speak in those terms because we know the impact that we're having. So people that are looking to get involved, people that are getting involved, we've all been recipients of Common Goals sitting up here. Recently we had Serge Canary, who is quite a famous player. He was at Arsenal as a young lad. He's now at Bayern Munich. He's one of our supporters. He supported us for a couple of years. He went out to see for himself in the Ivory Coast the program and the young people that he supports with his finance. It's all very well putting it on paper, but Serge was able to go and see the work for himself, and that is huge. And if you are doing it, if you are committed to the core values and you are aware of your impact, it's very easy to stand in front of anybody and say, this is what your butt gets you, here's the bang, and here's the difference.
Yeah, and so Nabry's like an example of now more and more players, as the movement is evolving, and now actually making these these visits, and the feedback's been extraordinary in terms of perception shifting experiences like you had with your trips with the Arsenal Foundation, which will only help get them more involved, right? Because our challenge now is, bearing in mind all of this stuff that that we're hearing, I think everyone knows it. It's the right time for athletes to speak up. It's the right time for football as an industry to start putting maybe values first. So the very, very quick example, the first club that joined, FC Nordsjælland from Denmark, they're about a year or so into being the first entire club that joined Common Goal. This summer they signed the biggest ever sponsorship deal in the club's history. They made 39 million on the transfer market. They have their best figures in terms of employee engagement and talent recruitment. They have more harmony in the dressing rooms from their under 14 up to their professional team than they've had before. And it's not because of Common Goal. Common Goal is actually, it's the other way around. Common Goal made sense for them because they're a proposition-led business. But the fact that DHL, the sponsor in question, approached them because of what their values stand for, actually, I think also helps give us arguments about how this makes sense from all the perspectives. I'm slightly the sort of went pretty quickly. I think just to take advantage of having you guys here. I mean, thinking about holistic education, and from your experience, Lauren, I mean, what do we need to be explaining to young players today about their role as players, or do we just focus on performance and that's it?
It's difficult. Society now has been changed a lot since I was a kid. I'm talking about my own experience. The parents figure, I think everything has to start from home. Father figure in our time, in parents, they were something more respectable than now. In the sense that parents say something, the kid used to listen and obedient and do whatever. Nowadays it's different. There's too many things around players. It's not only the manager, it's not only the coach, it's not only the agent. There is the agent, there is the guy, his own physio. There is a lot of people surrounding the youngsters that they're bombarding them every single day. So it's difficult to control them.
So we need to educate.
Having said that, I think they have to understand from early basis what it's all about football. Football is not going to stay the whole life. So football is 15, 20, maybe 25 years, the privileged ones, or 30, the ones superheroes. They can stay 30, but more or less, it's around 50 to 20 years career. It's no more than that. So the fact that, exactly, so they have to understand from early basis how long it takes. And it's due to the coaches, it's due to the parents in the house, and it's not easy to my advice to them is do the maximum that you can do in the time that you are playing football, but also listen to your parents, proper parents, listen to the one that give you the best advice. And also don't focalize everything in just football. There is football, but after 35, there is another life. So by the time you are playing football, be professional, be 100%, 120% committed. And when you get to 35, you're gonna still young. You can do a lot of things. I put my example now, where football has given me everything. I've been around, and when every single summer, I've got the lucky chance to travel with my kids around the world. No stay in the resort. The resort, they stay, okay. But you stay 3 or 4 days in the countryside, watching how the kids are not as lucky as you are, because now they give you everything, but you have to listen, you have to see. Obviously, in 3 or 4 days, you cannot teach them everything. But every single year, 3 or 4 days in the countryside, mixing for different people, absolutely, once they get to the right age, the hair will get bigger. I mean, they open the head. So my advice to them is to focus and then do everything as possible as a professional and take care about when you finish training in the training ground, you go away to the house, take care about reading, mixing to other people, these things away from football in order to mature in a different way. Otherwise, it's very complicated. Not listen to all people that are around, give you the advices, because there is too many people giving the wrong advice as well. Yeah. So it's due to the education at home and also with the people that they are dealing with the youngster every single day.
Brilliant, thank you. And I'd add to that as well, to have the ability to make your own choices as well. So, you know, have the confidence to make your own choices about things. Misha, in terms of education, how much do you see your role? So you're there to maximize revenues, yeah, to make the money, or?
No, actually not at all. I see money is a byproduct of all these of what you do while you're playing. I think it's important when you're football. Let's be honest. You could, if you're lucky, you have a long career, and hopefully you're financially secure. But actually, even if that happens, you still have a long life. You still have a lot of life to live. We hear so many stories about players going bankrupt after they retire. God forbid you have a career-ending injury. It's the thing that we focus on is to get. I don't think playing and developing other interests or being involved in other areas, they have to be mutually exclusive. It's important to be well-rounded. It's important to understand that yes, you could be a phenomenal footballer, but you're more than that. You're a human being who can relate to people in other ways. If your career ends tomorrow or in 5 years, it doesn't mean your life is over. You can contribute and you can transition into other things, other areas of life much easier if you have been exposed, if you're open to it during your career, than if you're solely focused on football and that's your only thing. So it's not my job is not to maximize their revenues. Is to allow the individual to develop themselves and to tap into their interests and beliefs as much as they can during the career, so that it provides them with a platform to then explore all sorts of opportunities. Some of that could be commercial, some that could be it could be anything else. But that it's making them more well-rounded off the pitch. It's not my job to manage their career. But
okay, thanks. Okay, and just to finish with Marcus and Yianny. I mean, what would be your vision for the future, and how you'd like to see this gap between the industry of football and the whole area of football for development narrow, and for these barriers to disappear?
Okay, well, I've had, as I said, almost 20 years working in Africa, sat at a consulting table, seeing young people come through with a myriad of different problems that you don't even want to hear about. And one thing that they all share, though, is a love of football, and we're able to engage them and see, health-seeking behavior amongst young people because of the football activities and the football pitches we have in front of our clinics, etc. I think, football does have a responsibility to support young people, and especially vulnerable and disadvantaged young people. And, bringing it back to the beautiful common goal that loves you, this is where it affords the industry the opportunity to support organizations like mine, but do it in a very meaningful way. Because the one thing I really love about Common Goal is that all of the people that join up with Common Goal have become, the way it's run, they become very hands-on. We've had sponsors through Common Goal that have come and visited and worked with us, but there's email exchanges, there's conversations, and that really is the way. People want to feel and know what they're supporting. I think that's really important, and I think that's where Common Goal really goes the extra distance. Anyway.
Okay, thanks. And Yianny, just to finish up?
The vision for us at Tackle Africa is quite simple. It's an Africa where the young people that we work with have the knowledge, the skills, and the rights to take control of their sexual health. The way that we do that with Common Goal support is exactly as Marcus has said. We are being supported to do the work we want to do the way we want to do it. That's a very important point that shouldn't be forgotten, is that the funding that we get and the support that we get through Common Goal allows us to do the work. Marcus has been on the ground for 20 years. We've been on the ground since 2002. I've been doing it for over 10 years. We believe that we've come up with a really effective, really good way of doing the work that we do, and Common Goal is trusting us to go and do that. It's putting it in our hands, it's getting on board, it's being part of it, and that really is our vision for the future.